especially when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is this certain expectation of precision, Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line on the screen, and the doctor just points at it and says, yep, there it is.
Right, it's binary. It's either broken or it's not broken.
Exactly. But the moment you step out of that clinic and into the reality of our daily modern routine, that x-ray machine just shatters. We're operating in the psychological landscape that is incredibly murky. The symptoms are constant, but the fractures are completely invisible.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. The invisible fractures of just getting through the day.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we are exploring today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a really massive, eclectic stack of sources today to try and map this whole thing out for you.
It's a really fascinating stack, too.
It is. We've got 2026 global travel forecasts from Sky News Arabia, deep dive interviews about family life in the mid-20th century, and even this collection of language-focused podcasts analyzing how people discuss their daily routines and childhood memories.
And our main mission here, really, is to trace this invisible line between our personal internal burnout and the macro-level economic shifts happening around us.
Right, because it's all connected.
It really is. We're looking at how the overwhelming nature of modern life isn't just a personal complaint anymore. It is literally the primary engine driving multi-billion-dollar industries right now.
Yeah, the sources paint this picture of a stressful, never-ending treadmill. And if the daily routine is the treadmill, well, nostalgia has become this heavily marketed, highly profitable, cozy blanket that's just waiting for us when we finally step off.
I mean, we all need that blanket sometimes, right?
Well, definitely. Let's actually start right at the beginning of the day, because the sources capture the modern morning with brutal accuracy. I'm sure you can relate to this.
Oh, I'm bracing myself.
There's this one description of the moment the alarm rings. You're lying there, hitting snooze, actively negotiating with the weight of your own blanket. You're just asking yourself if you really, truly need to participate in adulthood today.
It's a universal reluctance. But the actual mechanisms behind it are what really demand attention here. The sources introduced this brilliant concept called mental laundry.
Mental laundry. I just love that phrase.
It perfectly captures it, right? Before your feet even touch the floor, your cognitive load is already maxed out. You aren't just waking up gently. You are instantly processing all these fragmented tasks.
Yeah, like unanswered emails, financial anxieties, scheduling conflicts. They're just scattered all over your consciousness like dirty clothes covering a bedroom floor.
Exactly. You're instantly required to sort, fold, and manage this massive pile of responsibilities the literal second your eyes open. And honestly, this scattered high cortisol start to the day explains why the sources highlight such specific, almost desperate evening routines.
Right, because by the end of the day, you're just trying to survive the mental laundry.
Yeah. It isn't just about putting on sweatpants anymore. People are creating deliberate sensory shifts, like taking off shoes the absolute second they cross the threshold, what one source actually calls barefoot peace.
Barefoot piece, yeah. Or even taking a warm shower just to physically visualize the stress going down the drain. I totally do that.
Same here. And dimming overhead lights to create this shadowed, safe reading corner, Look at the physiology of those actions. These are literal nervous system resets.
Oh, wow. So it's biological, not just a preference.
Completely. Throughout the day, the modern worker is suffering from acute decision fatigue. Every email, every choice, every micro-interaction drains a finite reserve of cognitive energy.
So by the evening, the tank is just completely empty.
Exactly. The brain is actively seeking environments devoid of friction. Taking off your shoes or dimming the lights, those are environmental cues that signal your amygdala to finally stand down.
You are systematically shrinking your world to a controllable radius because the outside world is just too much.
That's it, exactly. The external environment has become too demanding.
And what's crazy is that this desperation to shrink the world, to escape the mental laundry, it isn't just confined to our living rooms. This is where the deep dive really scales up, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is where it hits the global economy.
Yeah, because according to the Sky News Arabia report in our stack, this exact psychological exhaustion is the definitive architect of the 2026 global travel trends. Like, the desire for cognitive rest is dictating how we move around the entire planet.
It really is. The stress of the daily routine dictates the design of the escape. You see this so vividly in the sudden explosion of the decision-free holiday.
Right, travelers are just flooding into all-inclusive packages. But if
Right.
you read between the lines, it has nothing to do with saving money or just being lazy.
No, not at all. They are suffering from such severe logistical burnout that the mere act of planning an itinerary or, like, choosing a restaurant feels like a continuation of their day job.
Having someone else orchestrate the logistics is the ultimate luxury product now.
It's the monetization of cognitive offloading. They're basically purchasing a temporary reprieve for their executive function. And this directly feeds into the second major trend we saw.
Oh, the push against over-tourism.
Yeah, the rise of secondary cities. Those sources note Indonesia is aggressively routing tourists away from Bali, and Japan is running massive campaigns to pull travelers out of Tokyo.
Right, because the masses are supposedly exhausted by crowds and they're seeking out these quieter, lesser-known towns.
Combine that with the spike in holistic wellness tourism in places like Costa Rica and Canada, and you see this really clear pivot from traditional sightseeing to psychological rehabilitation.
Okay, but hold on. Let's unpack this for a second. Let's look at the reality of human behavior here, because I have some pushback.
Let's hear it.
It sounds incredibly romantic on paper, right? The idea that millions of people are going to voluntarily bypass Tokyo or Bali for some quiet, unnamed village just to avoid a crowd. But honestly, we travel for status, we travel for guaranteed infrastructure.
That's a very fair point.
Are people actually going to ditch world-famous landmarks just to find a little peace and quiet, or is this just wishful thinking engineered by tourism boards who are desperate to spread the economic wealth?
Well, your skepticism is totally warranted. And actually, tourism expert Waleed Al-Awa addresses this exact friction in the Sky News Arabia report.
Oh, really? What does he say?
He argues that secondary cities face a brutal uphill battle. They cannot market themselves purely on the absence of crowds. Like, a
Like-
lack of congestion is not a destination.
Right. Nobody buys a plane ticket just because a place is empty. So what actually pulls someone off the beaten path?
Al-Awa uses this term comparative advantage. To compete with a Triton like Tokyo, a secondary city must offer a deeply unique, highly flexible cultural or ecological experience that is just physically impossible to replicate in the capital.
It needs a specific gravity, essentially.
Exactly. If a secondary city just offers a slightly worse version of the capital's amenities, but with fewer people, the modern traveler is going to default to the famous landmark every single time.
Because they're already exhausted and looking for a guaranteed return on their limited vacation time, they need a guaranteed win.
Yes, the guaranteed win is everything.
Which makes perfect sense. But if we are talking about guaranteed safety and guaranteed return on investment, we have to look at the other major travel trend for 2026, which honestly blew my mind.
The nostalgia tourism.
Yes, nostalgia tourism. The data in the sources shows that 80% of young Americans actively want to recreate trips they took during their childhood.
80% is a staggering number.
It's massive. And at the same time, retirees are using their freedom to embark on these adventurous golden year trips. But that 80% figure for young adults, that is a huge demographic actively retreating backward.
Well, think about the mechanics of memory versus the anxiety of the present.
Mm-hmm.
The present is unpredictable, right? It's the source of the mental laundry.
Yeah, constantly sorting the unknown.
But the past, however, is a closed loop. The narrative is finished. Recreating a childhood trip removes the anxiety of the unknown because you already possess the emotional blueprint of the experience. You know it's safe.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And you hear this deeply embedded in the language sources, too.
Yes, the language podcasts were fascinating on this.
They break down how naturally we defer to the past. Like when someone hears a song from high school, they don't say, oh, I remember that. They say, that takes me back.
Takes me back.
Yeah.
Or describing a lifelong friend with, we go way back. Even the digital architecture of our social media revolves around Throwback Thursday.
It's like we are constantly utilizing these physical metaphors of transportation just to escape the present.
We are linguistic time travelers.
We really are. But look at the texture of the memories people are actually returning to in these sources. They aren't grand, sweeping, historical milestones.
No, not at all. They are hyper-specific sensory anchors.
Exactly.
One source vividly describes the smell of a grandmother's homemade chocolate chip cookies and this physical memory of standing on a wooden chair just to reach the counter to help mix the flour.
Oh, I love that one. Or another one details the immovable tradition of Friday pizza night. A father buying raw dough and the tactile sensation of covering it in tomato sauce and cheese. It was an environment of absolute predictability and safety.
And there's that memory of learning to ride a bike with a grandfather. The mechanics of the memory are built on the physical terror of falling down repeatedly, contrasted so sharply with the grandfather's patient, steadying voice just telling the child to look ahead.
Or the story of a family relocating from Leeds to Brighton. The child lost their backyard, so the beach became the replacement.
Right, the candy floss story.
Yes. The memory isn't about the logistics of the move. It's anchored at age 10, standing on the pier, feeling the wind off the ocean, and eating candy floss for the very first time. The vividness of finishing the sugar before the mother even started hers.
And the neurobiology of this is crucial to understand.
Yeah.
Scent, touch, the sea breeze. These sensory inputs bypass the logical filtering centers of the brain and route directly to the emotional and memory centers.
So it's an immediate biological reaction.
Precisely. That is why the smell of cookies or the sticky feeling of candy floss serves as an immediate physiological safety anchor.
Wow.
When modern travelers seek nostalgia, they're not really looking for a location. They're attempting to biologically stimulate those dormant safety networks to counteract their daily cortisol levels.
So if we are this desperate to soothe our nervous systems today, we really have to ask, how did the baseline of daily life become so much heavier?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the sources actually tackle this generational shift head on.
Yeah, there is this interview discussing a mother's life in the mid-20th century, and honestly, the contrast to the modern routine is totally jarring.
It's like a different planet.
It is. She didn't go to university societally. It just wasn't expected for women in her circle. She went to a further education college, learned Pittman's shorthand to take dictation, and worked as a secretary.
And then, when she transitioned to family life, the boundaries were made of iron.
The division of labor was absolutely rigid. Her husband generated the income, and she managed the domestic sphere with military precision.
She describes having the children bathed, fed, and in bed by 7 p.m. every single night.
Which meant from 7 p.m. onward, the parents had a completely empty evening. No smartphones pinging with emails from a boss, no side hustles, no pressure to optimize their leisure time.
It was an era of finite tasks. The workday ended. The domestic day ended. The boundaries were societally enforced.
It kind of feels like this grand accidental bargain we made over the decades.
How do you mean?
Well, we traded the rigid, highly restrictive societal rules of the past, things like learning shorthand and enforcing strict 7 p.m. curfews, for immense modern freedom and flexibility. We can work from anywhere at any time.
Right, the barrier-free lifestyle.
Exactly, but by tearing down those walls, we allowed work, life, and anxiety to just bleed together into a permanent state of mental laundry.
That's a profound way to look at it. And the language sources capture this shift perfectly, not even through vocabulary, but through semantics.
Oh, right, the grammar breakdown.
Yes, they highlight the massive conceptual gulf between the phrases used to and get used to.
It's the difference between a static past and a really turbulent present.
Precisely. Used to denotes a completed state of being. The mid-century mother used to have a 7 p.m. cutoff. The script was finalized and just handed to her.
But get used to is active.
Very active.
Yeah.
It is the ongoing, exhausting process of adapting to a continuous state of friction. Today, dual-career households don't have a static baseline at all.
They have to continually get used to absorbing heavier mental loads. They have to get used to the dissolution of boundaries.
It is literally the language of perpetual endurance.
We are enduring the flexibility, and because the mental load is so punishing, we are frantically building technology to carry it for us. Which actually brings us to the final and frankly most paradoxical 2026 travel trend from the Sky News Arabia report.
Ah, the integration of artificial intelligence.
Yes, AI as the silent driver of hospitality.
The hospitality industry understands that their primary product is now the removal of friction. That's what people are paying for.
The report outlines how AI will anticipate guest needs before they're even articulated. Hotels in Dubai and Abu Dhabi are already implementing these systems where you bypass the front desk entirely.
You receive a digital code, bypass all human interaction, and walk straight into a perfectly climate-controlled room.
The ultimate decision-free, friction-free environment, a total eradication of the mental laundry. But, I mean, this creates a massive philosophical collision, doesn't it?
It really does. Because if AI successfully curates our environments to remove all waiting, all awkwardness, and all logistical errors, how do we form memories?
Exactly. When you look back at the cherished memories highlighted in these sources, literally none of them are about perfectly optimized, seamless logistics.
No, they are rooted entirely in chaos and human error.
It is the friction that encodes the memory. The human brain does not remember efficiency. It remembers anomaly. It remembers the deviation from the expected script.
The sources are full of these deviations.
Oh, they're so funny, too. Take the story of a teenager's first job as a babysitter.
Oh, the hostage situation.
Yes. The child locked himself in the bathroom and launched a literal hostage negotiation, refusing to come out for an hour unless he was promised ice cream. The babysitter's panicking, the mother is laughing on the phone, and the kid ultimately extorts the ice cream.
And see, an AI system would have optimized the door locks and regulated the child's diet. The friction would be eliminated, but the memory would just cease to exist.
Or the fierce, ridiculous sibling rivalries over who controlled the TV remote or who received a marginally larger piece of cake.
Or the memory of a ballet teacher so intensely strict that she turned a joyful hobby into a grueling punishment for a 10-year-old.
Oh, and we definitely have to talk about Carlos at the breakfast buffet.
Carlos is the absolute pinnacle of human anomaly.
One of the sources recounts this man, Carlos, completely ignoring all social norms at a hotel buffet. He returns to his table with 3 slices of cake, 2 ham sandwiches, and 4 chocolate cookies. And he just sits there in a state of pure, unbothered joy, eating 1,000 calories of sugar, while the waiter glares at him from across the room in this mix of angry surprise.
A frictionless AI hospitality system in 2026 would meticulously optimize Carlos's caloric intake. It would proactively suggest a balanced plate and eliminate the inefficient waste of the buffet line.
It would prevent the waiter's irritation entirely.
Exactly. The entire interaction would be seamless, polite, and instantly forgotten. The memory survives specifically because Carlos engaged in ridiculous, excessive human behavior that disrupted the environment.
So we are caught in this incredible trap. We are so exhausted by the daily grind that we demand a completely frictionless present. We want the AI check-in, the decision-free vacation, the perfect evening routine.
But simultaneously, we desperately crave a highly textured, chaotic past to anchor our identities.
We need the friction to give our memories grip. We are paying the travel industry to remove the very elements of chaos that ultimately synthesize into nostalgia.
A frictionless present, but a textured past. It's a real paradox.
Let's pull all of this together for you. We started by diagnosing the mental laundry, that overwhelming cognitive load that scatters our thoughts before we even wake up in the morning.
And then we mapped how this sheer exhaustion is driving the macroeconomics of 2026 travel, pushing us toward wellness retreats, decision-free holidays, and the heavy marketing of secondary cities.
We dissected the linguistics of how we conceptualize burden, moving from the static safety of what we used to do to the active endurance of what we must get used to.
And finally, we looked at the paradoxical promise of AI.
Right. The drive to eradicate all inconvenience in our lives might accidentally scrub away the messy, unscripted human errors that actually create the throwback memories we treasure so much.
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
It really is. So, as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want you to think about your own landscape for a second. Look at your daily routine. What are the specific environmental anchors you rely on to signal to your nervous system that it's safe to power down?
And more importantly, what is your absolute favorite childhood throwback memory?
Yeah. Was it a seamless, perfect day, or was it born from a ridiculous mistake?
As you consider those memories, I'll leave you with this final thought. We are currently pouring billions of dollars into technology designed to help us escape the stress and friction of modern life.
Billions.
But if AI ultimately succeeds in its mission, if it permanently removes every single minor inconvenience, every chore, and every point of friction from our daily existence, what happens to the human experience?
Wow.
Will future generations look back at our chaotic, overwhelming lives and actually feel nostalgic for stress? Will they crave the very mental laundry and messy human errors we are trying so hard to escape today just to feel something real?
Now that is something to chew on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of our modern minds and memories. We will catch you next time.